The lack of awareness, or the rose-tinted glasses so many of us wear, suppress your awareness of what's going on in the real world.
Most men have never had to walk down the street and worry about their safety.
Am I here for tokenism, or am I here because I'm the right person for the job?
We definitely doubt ourselves way more than men. I immediately discounted myself. God, am I so glad that I actually decided to take a chance on me. I decided I would lead with vulnerability. I would lead with my authentic self. When individuals are vulnerable with each other, connection happens so much deeper than if you have this bravado.
Vision and our mission is to empower and support women in a state agency.
In order for us to be bigger, they don't have to be smaller.
But nobody ever stands alone at Women in a State Agency. Yeah. Not a conference, it's not like any other conference. It's emotional, it's a roller coaster of a day.
I really want you to hear this. If you're an estate agent juggling a separate CRM, a standalone website, and these different marketing and prospecting tools, it's time to see what Iceberg Digital, the #1 operating system for estate agents, can do for you. At Gigs & Co, and within the Gigs Group, we use Iceberg, and it's absolutely out of this world. It's a complete ecosystem that makes your agency more efficient and more human focused. We've got AI scouts working behind the scenes, finding the full address details of properties on the market with other agents, matching them to our contact database, and even writing the email outreach. No human can keep up with that, and trust me, it's changed the game for us. So if you're prepared to make big changes to how you work and want to lead the way, just head over to iceberg-digital.co.uk today. And as a listener, use the code GIGSSHOW when you inquire for an exclusive perk on your setup. You're gonna love it.
Welcome to this Estate Agent Showdown special with Women in a State Agency and the board member. Are you the only male board member, or is it Ian as well?
No, the elusive Ian is also a board member.
So he's dodged a bullet, I suppose, in some ways.
He's been dodging a bullet for I think about 3 years.
This is a WiEA special, so welcome to your studio for me to film this special with you. So thanks for coming along today. And we've got some other special guests with us today. But I wanted to dive into this. I'm going to be really curious about the whole WiEA project. And my first question, I suppose I'm going to go to you first, Verona, is what was the moment that made WiEA start? In other words, why did it exist? Where did it all begin?
Okay, so it started out originally during COVID when Liana Laporte-Brown and Claire Hughes were talking about how challenging it was to connect with people around the country at a time when we weren't meeting in real life. Right. And particularly they were women who just started out their own businesses. And they were, they felt a bit bereft and a bit lonely and wanted to create a bit of a community. And they thought at the time that this gets to 200-300 members, then that will be a real win. So they set up a Facebook group and they invited a group of women that they knew, individuals that they knew, people that they'd worked with. And I was invited to join that. And back in those days, they also set up a podcast. Now, it's not like the podcast we have today. It was very kind of rough and ready podcast. It was done remotely for obvious reasons. Yeah. And I was one of the guests on that podcast. And we then, the people who were invited into that group, then started talking to other women that they knew. And very quickly that community grew to about 200, 300, 400 people reasonably quickly, which clearly created, it evidenced the fact that there was a need. There was a gap and women were connecting with it. So that's where it all began.
Well, it's fascinating because obviously I don't know the full history and where it all began, which is why I asked that question. And I'm really wanting to come from a different space with this interview today. As a man, just turning 50,
yeah, great.
Women in a state agency. I just really want to get a sense of the whole vision of it and what it's there for. So I'm going to pick on you now, Kirsty, to kind of give me a bit more of a detailed reply to that question. Tell me about the vision.
Our vision and our mission is to empower and support women in a state agency. So we want our members, our community members, of which we've now got 5,000 women on our Facebook group. You know, it's a huge community of people. And we want to support them and make sure that they don't feel alone. But we also want to break down the barriers that we still see within a state agency. So we know from the data that there is a huge proportion of women in the junior level roles in a state agency. Then when you get up to the senior roles and board level, that number significantly reduces.
I saw the stats. We were talking about that before
the
we come on.
gender jaws, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, we are and there's change happening. Those numbers are reducing for sure, but there's still an awful lot more to do. So everything that we're doing at WiEA is around making sure that we're supporting, that nobody feels alone, that we're doing training, development, we're there for questions. But we will also call out behaviour and instances that we passionately believe are not right. And unfortunately, we still see problems in the sector often. And I'm sure we'll come on today
we're going
to
to dive into
more
that.
about
and
that.
the seniority levels as well, because that's a really important factor. And just to kind of finish on that point, it was something we discussed beforehand, where at the lower level, the balance tips the other way, doesn't it?
I think on entry-level roles, the last data that I saw was around 75% female versus male.
Yeah, when you get towards
It completely flips the other
which
way.
is a really interesting debate, topic that we can talk about later. I'm looking at you longingly in the eyes, Ben. And
You give me those eyes, yeah.
it's very easy to give you those eyes. Being the only male on the couch here today, but tell us about your involvement in Women in the State Agency as a board member, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, so I've been on the board for a few months now. I guess I've sort of been a supporter of the cause over the last couple of years. The first, I guess, awareness I had around it was in the build-up to the conference a couple of years ago, where I interviewed Verona, Claire, and Liana, and I wanted to bring them onto the podcast I was doing at the time and turn it into a bit of a debate.
Yeah.
So that we
It was
could
a bit
have,
spicy.
just a bit of back and forth, because I think the lack of awareness, or the rose-tinted glasses that so many of us wear, sort of suppress your awareness of what's going on in the real world for a lot of people. So, you know, I was raised by a wildly fierce woman, and so we'd always, you know, in our household, there would never have been an equality issue. Mum ruled the roost.
So did that help you as you kind of got into this sort of world of certainly the property industry? From that upbringing, was it very polarising to see that? Was it more noticeable to you in other words?
No, so my interpretation of male-female is the right person for the gig gets the job, or the right person with the right skill set does the job. And that would, as a child in our house, Mum ran the house and ran the finances because she had the skills to do that. Dad was a scaffolder, and you know, everyone had their roles, and that made complete sense. When I get into working life, in agency, my first lettings manager was a woman. My second lettings manager and lettings director were both women, where I learnt my trade. And then when I went into my own business, I never really saw it as, I couldn't tell you exactly what we were, but we had an even split of women and men in the business, and across all roles. And you know, traditionally women, are thought of as veering towards administrative roles, and the men towards sales roles. But we're a lettings business, so we had a much more interesting split than that. And so I've never really seen it and experienced it. And I've got friends in agency that run businesses that are women. I think of Wendy Peterman, Angie Cooney, who are my mates, who are women. And so when I interview Verona and Liana and Claire, and I say, well, there's no issue because I give you this, that, this, Verona can push back though with data, which supports it as being an issue.
Yeah, because I'll say from your, it's a good place to get to actually. Just there, you're nodding your head as well, Verona. I mean, from your experience in the industry, how many years now have you been in the property industry?
In property, about 7 years, but before that I worked in financial services as a supplier to the industry for about 15 years. So I've been, across it for more than 20 years.
What do you think then, with your experience, people still misunderstand about the challenges women face sort of day to day in this industry in particular?
So just to kind of pick up on the thread that Ben was talking about, we all, every one of us, walk through life seeing things through our own lens.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And we're often totally blind to the facts of how other people's path is taking them. And I say this quite a lot, and I think I may have actually said it on your podcast, it's with respect to people who are to see things in a way that, oh, I don't see there's a problem. The number of times that men have said to me, there is no problem. My business is full of women. I really support women in industry.
I've said that.
Exactly. And but it comes from a lack of awareness of walking in other people's shoes, right? Most men have never been in a room and have been asked to take the minutes. No. Most men have never been asked to go and make the tea. Most men have never had to walk down the street and worry about their safety. Most men have never had to concern themselves with, will I get the opportunity to apply for this job because of my gender? There are so many things that we have to deal with that men just don't even consider because of their privilege. And I know that that's a triggering word. And for many people, whenever I say, do you not realize your privilege? That can take people aback. But it is a genuine privilege to walk through this world, not to have to worry about all those things and not to have to second guess the reason. And actually now, it almost is sort of going the other way. Sometimes when women are in environments, they say to me, am I going to be offered this job because I'm a woman? And then you're second guessing. Is it just
we see it with panels all the time. There's been a lot of
exactly.
talk in the industry around if there's an all-male panel, then whoever's organised that all-male panel
I had
gets...
a situation not long ago where that was highlighted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So then we're seeing, okay, well, we need to make sure we've got some female representation on the board. And I've been on a number of panels where I'm the only female on there. And, you could question, am I here for tokenism or am I here because I'm the right person for the job? And we constantly keep pushing this message and we talk about it in the Facebook group with the WiEA community all the time. Push yourselves forward. Let's give everybody the confidence to go out there and go, no, this is my specialist subject, or this is what I want to talk about. This is my voice. Because then you don't question whether you're there for tokenism. You know that you're there because you deserve a seat at the table. You've got something to say, But these are the questions that we are still asking ourselves. Am I here on merit or am I here because I tick the box?
And Ben, you may consider that more than most men. I'm guessing you probably do because you're in that environment now where you're probably hearing more of it.
Surrounded by us.
That's the point. That is the point. But from my perspective, I'm kind of thinking, Jesus, it does open your mind. I mean, we spoke about it not long ago. And like I said, a few years ago, I was saying, well, I don't see we've got over 50% of our team are ladies, And actually, one of the main, people running our business was a lady called Gemma, and she was definitely the boss, in the nicest possible way. So it's breaking that down, isn't it? It's breaking that down a bit more.
I think the issue is probably more, though, that we still say things like, one of the bosses in my business was a lady.
Yeah.
The fact that you have to say that.
It's the justification.
I think we had a call earlier this week where we're talking about how we can sort of improve on the charter, and I was talking to everyone and said the issue that I have. And I think actually it's an industry-wide issue, is because the word empathy gets thrown around so much in a state agency. We should be empathetic to the consumer's position. Well, the difficulty with empathy is you need to understand walking through their shoes. Yeah. And what I said on the call is that I'm 6'1", reasonably well built, and a male. I'm never going to be in 99% of the positions that Verona just reeled off.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I've made the notes plenty of time. I'm the chair of the National Advisory Council for Finding Country. I always take the notes.
AI.
Do you do that though because you offer to do it as opposed to this?
Because I'm a control freak.
Right. Okay. And
actually, in that instance.
Okay. And that's a different position.
Yeah.
And you are enlightened in many ways, partly because of your involvement in WiEA, but partly because you've observed and learned over the last couple of years from our conversations. But it is not the default position that happens.
And sorry, to not to make a joke of the real point I was trying to make, is that people are told to apply empathy to a position that you can't empathise because you've never walked in those shoes. The example I always give, and it would you two would have both heard this, one of the greatest members staff I've had work with me was a young single mum, and she used to 2 or 3 times a month have to be off to look after her kid. And it used to drive her around the bend, but she was amazing, and she could get away with murder actually because she was so good. But once I had a 3-year-old in my life, I then understood why she had to take a couple of days off every month, because kids have always got something wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't empathise until I'd walked in her shoes.
Yeah.
So let's say, look, I think a lot of the guys in the industry have got good intentions.
I agree with that.
But where do they get it wrong as such, and where can they put those intentions right? Just from a perspective of, I genuinely believe that, like me, you say things without realising it because you don't fully understand the context.
It's about, sorry, V. I would say seek to understand then, because I think we can all always learn more. We can all always do better. So I do think that intentions are good in most places.
Yeah, there's always going to be
there's
some, right?
pockets of not so fabulous. But, you know, everything that we're trying to talk about through our messaging, through our conference, not a conference, through our training, through our podcast, everything that we do, we're trying to educate as well. You know, this isn't just about women. This is about men and women, because we have to do this together.
Yeah.
So I would just, you know, as we're talking about this message at the start of 2026, I would urge anyone just to start talking to us more and listening to what we're saying from the WiEA community, and understand from everybody else's lens a little bit more, because as everything we've just talked about, everybody's seeing this slightly differently. But if you seek to understand and listen more, then you'll understand the problems that a lot of women in our community are facing still.
I think it's like, I don't know whether men naturally have that empathy or perhaps the ability to just stop what they're doing and understand. But I think it's really good advice from a perspective
in an
of
industry
trying to
like
get
this,
into...
you're going to get the traditional salesperson talks more than they listen.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't align particularly well with a learning environment, hence there being 7 coaches in an industry where there are 21,000 people.
Yeah.
So it's easier said than done. Listen, seek to understand. It makes complete sense. The place that I find I learn the most, apart from surrounded by these two, is at the conference. You know, if you're really interested, the conference is a great place to start.
Yeah, let's talk
What a
about...
plug.
Let's talk about the fact that...
Seamless.
Look at that.
Let's talk about the fact
Not my first rodeo.
Because it's coming up in March, is that right?
Yeah,
5th of March.
March 5th.
March the 5th. For those of you who are watching, you must get a ticket, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be close to selling out by the time this is released.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's not a conference, though.
It's not.
Great.
It's not a conference.
You got the
not.
message.
It
You
is
got the
not a
memo.
It's not a
conference.
just so you know, it's not a conference. Why isn't it a conference?
So the whole theme this year around Not a Conference was a play on the feedback that we've had for the last 3 years.
I said that as
Yeah,
well.
with the overwhelming feedback that we've had for the last 3 years is, oh my God, this is not a conference. It's not like any other conference. And it's not. And it's, you know, we try so hard to articulate what this date in the year is all about and what we do. And yes, we have speakers and we have different guests and we've had panels.
We've had some pretty spectacular guests.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
and very different types of speaker.
It's just not a normal conference, you know. We're not here talking about compliance. We're not here giving you estate agency takeaways. It's
We're not selling.
We're not selling
That's
anything.
one of
you're
the
not
biggest
gonna pitch.
differences. No, there's
no
no
pitching.
pitches. Yeah.
But we also, the whole vibe of the event is very difficult for us to articulate unless you feel it. But it's emotional. It's a roller coaster of a day. We'll have you up dancing on your chairs, and we'll have you crying, feeling like, oh my gosh, this is a story.
Hold on. So what Kirsty's describing sounds like my idea of hell. So it's not exactly that, just to clarify.
Give us your take.
So it is emotive. There are some really inspirational talks,
Yeah.
which generally at the conference you might get a bit of inspiration from the keynote at the end. Everyone else is sort of pitching to you. There's no pitching, there's no selling, there's a lot more inspiration, there's a lot more emotion, and genuinely you learn something. If I go to a standard industry conference, after 20 years, there's very little new subject.
Yeah.
Still feels a bit samey.
Yep.
So this is, if you do enjoy learning, there's a really good opportunity to learn something new here. And I have the last 2 years.
And just to go back to the question that you asked previously about how can...
I'm so glad you're here, Verona. You keep
Keeping
us
you on track. The question about how can men do better. And by the way, it's not just men, because this empowerment and confidence of women is not exclusive to men being a problem.
Yeah.
And perhaps we'll touch on that as well. But at the conference, what you hear is stories of paths that people have walked, experiences that they have
Totally.
lived through. And we've had, every topic on the table, literally grief, rape,
Attempted murder.
attempted murder. We've had depression, we've had anxiety, we've had menopause, we've had
Personal
topics
safety,
and traumatic experiences that people have lived through that if you hadn't heard it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, you wouldn't believe that they happen, right?
Yeah.
So there has been, the conference is a brilliant place, to Ben's point, a brilliant place to understand more. It's a way of seeking to understand without maybe exposing how you feel yourself or exposing your own perspective. And I think that's why it makes it so different and so special.
And last year we did, for the first time, we had 3 industry speakers do the TED-style talks.
Like Vicky, Anne.
And Danny Nash,
she's
yeah.
hilarious.
And they tore the roof off. So
They did tear the roof off.
They were brilliant.
So we are bringing the TED Talk panel back again this year. 3 new in-industry TED Talks for this year. And their whole theme is going to be around mistakes that made me. So again, we're tearing up the rule book in terms of the type of content. We've got speakers from in-industry, speakers from outside industry.
Do you know, that's such, sorry to cut you in, but for me, that was the highlight of the day for me when I went to the last one.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why, and that's because I think as a guy, you don't tend to wear your heart on your sleeve. So when you hear somebody else putting their heart on your sleeve, it kind of just relaxes you a little bit. It makes you think, God, I'm not the only one going through stuff here.
Yeah.
And it's certainly relatable. I know there's that Brené Brown TED Talk, Power of Vulnerability. I think we've mentioned that before, which is a great one to watch, by the way. But it's a very vulnerable environment, which then as a, someone who's probably not as vulnerable as you probably could be, it kind of releases a little bit of that in you, and it takes you to another place.
I talk about vulnerability a lot, and I think vulnerability is one of the most powerful. Do you call it an emotion? Do you call it a trait? I don't know what you call it, but when individuals are vulnerable with each other or create an environment where you can be vulnerable, connection happens much deeper than if you have this bravado. And that is the thing I think about the conference that
I
is
think as well,
special.
Sort of staying on that point, I think with AI and all of the stuff that's going on in the world at the minute, that trait or behaviour or whatever it is, really, I don't really know what the answer is. It's so important because it does build deeper connections and realness and trust, which is wholeheartedly. I mean, we're here in Digital Spark Studio. I mean, you're going to be growing viral video content because it's about the person that's in it, it's the vulnerability, it's the realness.
It's the authentic vulnerability, which is much more important because unfortunately, just like authenticity became a bit of a buzzword last year, vulnerability has become a little bit of a buzzword this year, and people sort of potentially weaponize it or use it for an ulterior motive. But when you're at a conference and people are, wearing their heart on their sleeve, as you put it, the connection is stronger. It becomes very real because you can read the emotion. There's no AI can't replicate the emotion in someone's eyes, their lived experience. And I think apart from anything else, it's a little bit like a good novel is better than most business books because it's a good story, it's interesting. And so the people are presenting something that's genuinely interesting. You want to hear the end of the talk. Whereas if someone's talking to me about compliance, I just want it to end.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I walked out of one not long ago, halfway through the day, and that was probably the most expensive conference to go to. I was just bored. I can't tell you that when you go to this particular event, and I'm not going to call it a conference, it just gives you a different feeling as you walk away, and it's actually quite reflective, I would say.
I think we're not here to slate anybody else's events.
No,
there's so many good events and there's so much training, but I think
it feels the same.
different purposes.
Totally different purposes.
We feel that our event is really somebody making an investment in themselves.
Yeah.
And we know that they'll take a huge amount of personal development away from that
Men
day.
and women, by the way, whether that's learning, understanding, acknowledgement, or empowerment. Yeah.
Do you think, though, that one of the things men have got to kind of open up with is that vulnerability side of things? Because it isn't natural. I mean, we tried, I can see the group that you started, and you know, there's a
Yeah.
there's a resistance to connection, isn't there?
And so like, I'll answer this is, I don't think men have asking people to change.
No.
is a fool's game.
Well, you could
You know,
push them away.
exactly. Then
Yeah.
you know, no one's going to change it. So I'm mid-40s, and so we sit perfectly in that generation where there's been just huge change from a, if you think about traditional gender roles, our parents had, there was normally a breadwinner and normally a stay-at-home mum raising the kids. But my children will have, that will be almost a foreign concept, because we are that generation that's
We're
seen
like
the
a
change.
bridge, aren't we?
Sorry?
It feels like our generation's a bit of a bridge.
We are the
Yeah.
So we're also the
That's a
most
good way to
confused.
look at
We're
it.
the
Yeah.
confused generation.
Yeah.
Just trying to appreciate and
literally, we can
understand.
see what used to happen. I mean, how many times we didn't used to have phones.
What?
My lad occasionally says he's bored. I'm like, but being bored's all right, but don't say anything. But the point is we've seen a generation before us, and the generation before them as well.
Yeah.
And the differences in the way.
Well, like I heard something yesterday, funnily enough,
We're
that
growing up.
millennials no longer ask baby boomer parents as grandparents to look after the kid, because the baby boomers, they're living their own lives.
Yeah.
Whereas a generation before,
Yeah.
grandparents
an
were always around.
expectation,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the world has changed rapidly. And I just think if you ask men to be more vulnerable, you're going to get pushback. And I think it's more, not you have to be vulnerable, but just get a bit more comfortable talking about stuff.
Being in more conversations. Like, I think what you've done with going out and, you do the meetups and stuff, I think that's a great starting point, because let's be honest, it involves having a drink with people that are in the industry. So you've got that connection there, which is already that understanding that we're all in this together, especially when you've had challenging climates in the last few years, which
Yeah.
we've definitely had. I think all of us have spoken about that as well. It just begins the conversation. And I think guys need more of that. That's what I'm saying. You can't push people towards a door
Can
they
I
don't
just
want to go
add
through.
to that, Matt? Because I think it's also fair to say that we hugely acknowledge that with this shift, with this bridge to the new future, we understand that that can be confusing. And, I'm a mum of three. I have a 21-year-old daughter, I have an 18-year-old son, I have a 13-year-old daughter. And we talk about this a lot at home. What is the part that you're going to play in your world in the future? And it was very clear when I was growing up, or it appeared to be very clear, that I would probably follow there was an expectation that I would follow a more traditional gender path. I did not. But a lot of my sisters have. And for a lot of people now looking into the future and educating their children about what the future looks like, it's not as clear cut as it used to be. And I do acknowledge that for men, it's kind of that's unsettling, that disruption of, so now am I going to put myself forward for a job, and am I going to not get the job because there is tokenism and I'm up against a woman for that job? I may be better for the job, but they're going to give it to her because she's a woman and she's making up the quotas. So there is a lot of ripple effects of us wanting a more equal playing field for everybody. And there is going to take a little bit of disruption, because that's change. And change isn't always, a happy path for a lot of people. So I think we acknowledge that. I talked about it on stage at the conference last year, that, we acknowledge that's the case. So therefore, we want to have those conversations with men. We also want to acknowledge that in order for us to be bigger, they don't have to be smaller, right?
Yeah.
That's really important. We just want to be seen in the same light.
Yeah. So I'm going into that sort of space where we briefly touched on earlier. I'm going to go to you here, Kirsty. We talked about the entry level to the industry and the swing reversing to the more senior positions being more male dominated. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, there's a whole host of reasons why we're seeing this happening. And a big part of it is, as women, we take some time out to go and have children. And then coming back into the workplace is challenging. And, the very easy way to be able to solve that is to support any of your team who are taking a bit of a career break and then wanting to come back in and progress. But that means understanding. That means communication with them while they're off. We had a really interesting conversation on the pod a couple of weeks ago with Nikki Stevenson from Fine and Country, and she'd been off on maternity leave, and there was a whole host of really exciting announcements happening while she was off, and the team didn't involve her in it and didn't tell her and didn't kind of make her part of it. And her message was, I'm sure they were trying to do the right thing by leaving me alone and leaving me to it while I'm on maternity leave. But actually, I didn't die. I'm still here, you know, talk
Not
to
on
me.
gardening leave or something, are you?
So I think, you know, talk to your team. How do they want to be involved when they're out of the business? How do they want to come back in? Can we offer flexibility? You know, I would much rather have somebody in my team that I know is working 5 days a week on reduced hours, and they're getting the best of both worlds because they're getting time with their family and time at work, but they're giving me 100% when they're working, because we've got that common ground that I'm giving them the support and they're wanting to therefore come in and work really hard for me. So I think...
But I think that's... whilst I completely agree and understand the principle of the point, it's an oversimplification, because somebody goes on maternity and you look at how government have changed human resources policies and employment policies, and the fear, I imagine, for lots of small business owners is, I don't know if I should be contacting people while they're on maternity, because, you know, people can complain about everything.
But then have a conversation.
No, I appreciate that. And so, I think there needs to be better guidance, probably, and better advice available, and it needs to become maybe a more common conversation piece. Because it's easy to say, just talk to them, but for a lot of people, they aren't dealing with someone who's on maternity every week, and they're dealing with a busy small business, and they're running around, and they don't have their arse from their elbow because they're doing this and they're doing that. If someone goes on maternity, and their last experience of it was when their wife went on maternity, and so they just revert to what it used to be. So I'm not saying it's right. What I'm saying is you can understand the sort of the difficulty around that, and how there needs to be better guidance.
But I think you guys are educating a lot, in not just to the ladies in your groups and the events and stuff, but to the guys as well, who are actually trying to understand. They're never going to be able to say they fully understand.
Yeah.
I think that's a you know, that's a given, isn't it? But I
There's
think
a lot
what
of
you just said there, I think is really interesting about that inclusion of someone feeling like, you know, I'm still part of it, guys. You know, I want to be a part of this journey as well. And sometimes you can feel like you're being left at home because you're off having.
And it's not the same for everybody. Somebody might want to be left alone for 9 months, and then I'll come back. But it's all around education again, Matt. You know, we've got to talk about you know, the career breaks and coming back in. We've got to talk about menopause and the struggles that women are facing around that and getting the support they need around it. We've also got to talk around confidence. You know, women as naturally as a whole tend to not put themselves forward quite as much. Bit. Well,
we definitely doubt ourselves way more than men. We bandy around imposter syndrome, and that is something that is actively discussed in the Facebook group a lot. So women doubt their capability, they doubt their confidence. They also worry about, can I give everything to this, giving what I have to juggle at home and giving my responsibilities, because, you know, some women have incredible support at home. Some women know that if I put myself forward for a big job like this, I won't be able to do that and do justice to my family because I know my husband won't support me, which is sad beyond belief.
It is sad.
We also hear a lot, sorry Matt, we also hear a lot from women in the group who are saying, I'm doing really well and my career's going really well, and this is now becoming a little bit of a challenge for my family at home. My husband is not supportive of me, not supportive of me doing so well.
Or threatened. Yeah.
You know why that is also difficult for men to appreciate? Because men don't struggle with imposter syndrome that much.
Yeah.
So again, it's that empathy thing. You know, everyone assumes everyone's walking the same path, so I don't suffer with it. So do you really suffer it? And also, you can find yourself speaking to women that don't suffer with it.
Of course you
can. What I mean is, who will say things like, "No, we just, you know, got to get on with it." You know?
Yeah, exactly. Angie Cooney is classic at that. Yeah, exactly. I had that conversation with her many times. Yeah.
I remember when I'd done my own little event a few years back now, probably about 8 years ago. I hired Karen Brady to be my keynote because I thought and believe, and I actually genuinely believe that you couldn't probably face a more male-dominated
environment,
boardroom style, you know, situation than the one that she faced. And
nothing to do with the team she was doing.
But I thought, it's a quick funny story. I thought I'll get her because I might be able to get a free ticket to watch West Ham. For the amount that I paid, no, that did not happen.
Not even a free ticket.
I got a 15-minute phone call where I cracked a joke about West Ham, and I didn't hear a thing on the other end.
Pin drop.
It was a bit of a pin drop moment. I thought, I just better carry on.
Were you just not very funny?
Kirsty, you know me well. You know that I'm very funny. But going back to that point about, you know, those kind of breakthroughs and those situations, here's my opinion. I think women possess leadership skills that are more needed now. I listened to Graham Norton the other day. There's a Jacinda
Ardern from New Zealand.
From New Zealand. And, you know, I just think, fuck, I wish she was over here.
Yeah, she's incredible.
But anyway, that's a side note. But the point I'm making is that they possess these skills which I feel can work across the different gender. And they've got this ability to include, involve and inspire, as we've talked about with the event earlier on, more people. I feel where guys have played their strengths over the years is you give them projects and focus, things to just go and get on with. They have this kind of determination to see it through, but the blind spots are completely there. So I feel like it's a real shame. This is my call to ladies that are in those groups, which I'm obviously not a part of, being a guy, but who do doubt themselves, because I know that women have the abilities, and it's not really about output, it's about outcome. That I'm kind of saying to you is it's the outcome of your organisation's project, it's the outcome that you should be working towards, not the output of hours as such. Like, if you're in leadership, it's less about you getting things done today, it's about, are you moving towards a vision?
Yeah.
And that can be done.
And doing it in the right way as well.
And done in the right way with the right support.
Look, Matt, there is no question that there are some phenomenal male leaders. I have learned from some of the best. Some of the best mentors in my career have been male.
To say that.
Yeah, I wasn't talking about it. I've also learned from some incredible women. I don't think that there is necessarily like women are better leaders than men, or men are better.
They possess great skills.
And as a blend, as is always the case, as a blend, it's very, very powerful.
It 100%
The
is.
stats tell us that the blend is unbalanced.
Yeah.
And therefore, that is what we want. What we're not trying to seek here is that the gender jaws spins the other way, and that now there's 75% women in senior roles. If we're somewhere 50-50, that will be the best outcome.
You just sorry, Kirsty, just quickly. You just hired a chap called Tom.
I did.
to
Well,
work-
he's been with. I've just
Sorry,
promoted him. He's been with us
promoted.
for 18 months. Yeah.
Forgive me. And I certainly work with ladies in my business. I think there's that combination element, which I think is an eye-opener for a lot of people, where it shouldn't all be on your shoulders, taking all of the pressure. And you may only possess a certain amount of skills in the particular areas that you want to drive forward. When you've got those skills around you that you could share it as a leader. So
That only works as well when you show up as yourself, right?
Yeah,
and so V and I have had this conversation a number of times over the years, where probably both of us earlier in our careers felt like we had to lead a little bit more with our masculine energy, because that was kind of
Dial up the male.
Dial up the male, what was expected of you if you were going to be the boss and you were going to be in the big job. And I think both of us have realised over our career that actually we are so much more effective and blend better in whatever businesses, board tables, etc., that we be lucky enough to sit on, if we show up as ourselves. And that does mean some softer edges, and that does mean not being afraid to be vulnerable and show some emotion as a leader, because that's who we are. But it's a lesson that I've had to learn over the last 10 or 15 years.
is that hard because you're conditioned to do that in some ways?
I'll tell you what I think. It's definitely, for me, once I realised the power of that, it was easier. Where it's difficult is for the people around you.
Okay.
So when I stepped into this job, so just so that you know, my SLT is 60% male, 40% female. And it's a blend of completely different skill sets, regardless of gender, completely different skill sets, completely different personalities, and it just works really, really well. But whenever I stepped into this job, I decided I would lead with vulnerability. I would lead with my authentic self, and I knew that I had to do that from day one. So on my first leadership team meeting, I said, we're going to go around the table. We spend an hour on a check-in at the start of every single one of our SLT meetings, because I want to understand what's going on in your world, and we give ourselves a score out of 10 or an emoji, use an emoji to describe how you're feeling, personally, professionally, And I opened up talking about, I had just been diagnosed with menopause at the time, and I talked to them about the challenges that was creating for me, and therefore what they'd have to live with. And it was really uncomfortable for some of the men. They were, they didn't want to look me in the eye, and they started out with, talking about business and professional, and I knew that they weren't going to get to the real vulnerability stuff until a bit of practice. And eventually, we've been doing that for nearly 4 years, and we've got there now. We've shared so much. We've shared tears in that check-in. We've shared so much about our lives in those check-ins, because I think it's so important that I lead with vulnerability, and that helps them connect with me, and that creates an environment of psychological safety where they know that they can literally turn up as themselves, and they're valued for all of them in terms of everything they bring to the party.
Just carrying on that theme about you showing up with vulnerability as a leader, what stops people from doing that, do you think?
I think we are under the impression that if we show any chink in our armor or any slight, I may not be good at that, or I may be having an off day, that there will be, someone will come in and try and cut you down or blame you for something. Yeah, exactly. And, and that is about the culture that you operate within as a business. So that kind of shift doesn't happen overnight. You have to create that culture in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
And if you have a blame culture, and if you have a culture where people don't feel like they can fail and be forgiven and learn and move on, then that won't work. But you have to create that culture first of all.
Can it be hard though for that change to happen? And then if it does gradually go down that space, that then people maybe, I hate to say this because this sounds terrible, but then maybe they do throw the personal stuff into the reason why the job can't be done. I'm just thinking objectively. So I mean, that's a real random thing to say, but I'm just trying to think of what somebody watching might be considering, because sometimes over the years, people can make excuses for why their performance isn't in line with the expectations. And if they oversharing, perhaps using this as a reason why they can't show up there, that's quite an interesting place to get to.
I mean, I think that has to also be balanced with clear accountability.
Well,
you have to be really clear on what your role is, what you're accountable for, and there has to be a structure to measure that.
Yeah.
So we're not going to, in a performance meeting conversation, have that level. You have to, segment it in a way that makes sense to the people that you're interacting with, that they're not confused.
Because I think it's a brilliant idea, because I think you carry a lot as a business owner, and you've probably felt the same. You certainly, Kirsty, in the last couple of years, making the shifts and the growth that you're doing, and certainly with where you are, you carry a lot, don't you? So to be able to share it with a team that you trust, that's like another level, isn't it?
It's a superpower. It genuinely is. Yeah. And you feel like everybody is with you on the journey, and you know people so much better as a result.
I'm going to bring myself back to the point that Kirsty answered quite nicely earlier about the leadership kind of CEO or C-suite level or kind of leadership roles and responsibilities more shifted towards the male as opposed to females. What are your thoughts on that? Why has it improved over recent years?
So the data tells us that it has improved by about 10% which is great. Yeah. Absolutely, it's great, and it's going in the right direction. That's all we can ask, that we're making progress towards the right outcomes. I think it's a lot of circumstance, some of which we've talked about in terms of the fact that we have a womb and therefore have children, and therefore you are a different person when you're a mum. But also it is about putting ourselves forward and believing in ourselves enough. So if I take my own story, whenever the headhunter reached out to me for this job, my immediate response was, I can't be a CEO. No, that would be ridiculous. Oh yeah, absolutely. I immediately discounted it in my own head. And, do I even want to be? Because my impression of when you think of a CEO was a 6'2", male, pale, and, with a suit and an arrogance, right? And hands up, rightly or wrongly.
That was my stereotypical image, isn't it?
Exactly.
6'1".
Okay, 6'1", 6'2", I've got the tape measure. But the point is, I immediately discounted myself. Now, God, am I so glad that I actually decided to take a chance on me. And I did that, and I made a very active decision. I said to my husband, do you know what? I'm going to go along for the journey. I'll meet a bunch of really interesting people because I knew who the shareholders were. Grenville Turner was our chair at the time, and he was heading up the recruitment process. I thought, and I sort of knew Grenville, but I didn't know him very well. I said, I'll go into this and I will be 100% authentically me. And I made that very and most people should go into a recruitment process being themselves, but a lot of people don't, right? They show up in the way that maybe they think the panel expects them to. So I said, if this is what they need and want, I will be successful. And if this is not what they need and want, I won't. Either way, I'll have met a group of interesting people and I'll have learned a lot along the way. So when they offered me the job, it gave me a full green light to go into that company and into that role, knowing that I was what they needed and wanted, and I could be 100% myself. And I haven't changed that position for almost 4 years now. And, you know, I think that is a powerful message to any woman who thinks, oh, I can't do that. Well, just do you. And if this is the right environment for you, you'll be successful in it.
Yeah. And my story is I procrastinated for a number of years before making the jump to start in Frank marketing with can I really do this? Can I really go on my own? Can I really run a business? I've got a child that needs me to support them. Can I do this? And I taught myself out of it so many times. But then, as I talk about feel the fear and do it anyway, finally made the jump.
What was the point where you kind of said, yeah, I'm going to do this? What was the one that kicked you into gear?
I think, so I've been in lots of different sectors, not just in property, and my role at Lomond meant that I had kind of my first foray into property. And at that point, I saw, this is it. This is the area where I can make a difference. So that was the final push that I needed when I kind of thought, I knew I wanted a marketing agency, but then it was kind of, I'm gonna niche down into property. But even when I did it, even when I made the jump, everyone around me, I said to them, I'll do it for 6 months. If it doesn't work, I'll go get a proper job again.
Protecting yourself.
Yeah, I did. There was still constantly that doubt in my head, can I do it, can I do it? So, and I think it's whether you're going for a CEO role, whether you're going for, to start your own business, whether you want to go to that promotion for senior neg, whatever it is, I think as women, we do question and doubt ourselves a lot. And I hope that what we're giving our community in WiEA is that, we're the best hype squad. So women in our group feel like
right?
they can come into that group and say, I'm questioning myself, I'm doubting myself, what do you think? These are the questions, these are the things that I'm struggling with. And they've got 5,000 women there hyping them on, going, bloody jump.
And they do actively. You see the comments, you see the support, and it's genuinely heartwarming.
Empowering, isn't it?
Yeah, it's incredible.
But as women, we question ourselves a lot, and that is why a big part of why we're seeing these gender jaws. A lot
of the listeners for my show are small independent estate agency, self-employed business owners, and so it's been brilliant to see that come along. And many have probably got teams with a mixture of males, females. What advice would you give them then to help that person that possibly overthinks themselves out of opportunities? What would be your advice to those business owners if you were able to?
Well, firstly, I would encourage every single woman that's working in a estate agency to join that Facebook group.
Do that.
So Women in Estate Agency on Facebook. I'd also say to all of the men that are in a estate agency, follow us on our socials. You can't be in the Facebook group, sorry, but on our Instagram. Yeah, you can't.
Need more a wig.
But I think, a lot of the themes that we've talked around today is around communication, is around vulnerability, is around authenticity. So as a leader of an agency, as an owner of a small business, talk to your people more and talk to them about what support they need, give them training, talk to them about how you can better support them. What development plan does that look like for them? How do you help all of your team, men and women, to get the next stage of what they want in their career?
And just, sorry.
You go, please.
Okay. it's wider than, for me, it's wider than women in a state agency. It's about culture.
Yeah.
It's about the culture in the business that you want to create that enables everyone to feel that they're playing their part and they're recognized and given opportunities equally. And one of the best questions that you can ask your people is, what's it like to work here? Just tell me. And then listen. And then just keep drilling down on that. So tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. And you will learn a lot about how they feel to operate in your environment. And if you understand that, if you listen, you're going to find out whether you are creating that environment where it's equal, it's inclusive, and they feel valued and appreciated for what they bring to the table. Because the other thing is, not everybody wants big promotions, you know? If everybody wanted to be the boss, then we wouldn't have a structure in a business that was successful. Everybody wants different things at different points in their career.
Just on that then, you've got 5,000 members. What would you say is the biggest thing the women want in the businesses or the environments that they're in, would you say? What would you say what's the most common three things?
I think fairness.
Okay.
That comes out a lot. And they feel, whether it's through promotions, whether that's through flexibility, whether it's through being listened to, they feel that it's unfair that if a man says something, they're listened to more than if they say something, whatever that request might be. So fairness is a really common thread, if you sort of distill it down to all the different stories.
You're not in the group, Ben, so I can't really ask your advice on that. But
No,
what would you say
I mean, you know,
your
one of my
perspective?
hackers around. No, so like, just to come back to what you were asking a moment ago, I think care is the most important word in business ownership. And if you genuinely care and you really do, then everything works itself out. Yeah, I really think it does. I think that's why great agents are great agents, because they care about their clients' outcomes. If you care enough, you make it work, and it's the same with leadership. Just an opinion. To peel another layer off in terms of what Verona's saying about understanding your team, something that I found, this is like a very business piece of advice. Gallup Survey, if completed anonymously, is gold. It's 11 questions. Let your team do it every 6 months. Let them do it anonymously, and you will have a real insight into what your business is doing when you're not in the room. So easy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Ben, just so we're clear on that, because I think both those bits of advice there were fantastic about asking your team what they really think it's like to work there. But I suspect you're still going to, maybe, I don't know, maybe there's an element.
You have to have a culture where you're
They feel they
prepared to
can.
listen and they can say, and they're not going to be used then
But
against
then you've got another level,
a different way of doing it.
which Ben was saying. So it's the Gallup
Survey, 11 questions will tell you everything about your business when you're not in the room. So it's questions like, do you have a best friend at work?
Yeah.
Which is so important.
It's a great question.
And there's
Why
11
is that
questions.
so important?
Because you spend more time with your work colleagues than you do your actual friends and your spouse and your kids. So if you don't have a mate at work, it's probably not much fun, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that's just one of the 11 questions. It's 11 questions, so it's done in 10 minutes, nice and quick, nice and easy. And I think it's really important. I appreciate psychological safety is hugely important. Google made this point about 15 years ago. Best performing teams feel like they can share anything with anyone, and no one's made to feel that big. But that is a difficult position to get a big business in, where you've got layers of hierarchy. So if you genuinely fill it in anonymously, you will get some great results. And I mean, don't set the team up.
When did you first do it, Ben?
I don't know, years and years and years ago.
What was it like? Because a lot of people probably haven't done it. I haven't done that. So what was
Yeah,
it when
I mean,
you first did it?
I don't want to. I want to be really authentic here. I don't actually remember.
Okay.
What I will
Just
what I will say is, we'll cut that. It was amazing. No, look, we used to call our business a bit of a cult because we really did care about our team, and so the feedback was really positive. And then you're sort of blindsided by one of the questions is, do you have the tools you need to do your job well? And you get a few no's. You think, what tools don't they have? And someone said, well, I've got a broken chair. Okay. The fact that you've raised it I think that's a small thing, but actually you've got to sit in that chair 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
It's a really small thing, but it's so important to people. Their working environment really does matter, and of course it does.
Yeah.
But you didn't notice they were sat on the floor.
Well, I thought I thought that was just a twitch. But it's an eye opener, and a piece of advice just in terms of how to deliver it. The question, there's a bit of, I would say, just clarify exactly what the question means. There are a couple of questions where It could mean a couple of different things. You can get sort of
It's
varied and strange
interpretations.
responses. Yeah. So just a bit of clarity around this question is specifically asking you about this area of work. And I found it so powerful. And actually, cards on the table, we haven't done that in years. We run a much smaller business now. And back then we were, it was a force of 60 people. And so it was probably essential in a business that size. In a smaller business, I know what everyone have for breakfast.
Yeah.
You know each other so well, don't you? But there was actually something, I really wanted to make a much better point than talking about the Gallup survey, and it's completely gone.
No,
it's
that
gone.
happens.
Yeah.
It'll come back. If not, we'll have to do another one. But what about your thoughts on what we was discussing?
Yeah, so we actually asked the community recently around why they joined Women in a State Agency, why they joined the Facebook group, what they get out of it. And the biggest responses were around they want that kind of support and community feel. You know, what we talked about being the hype squad and the cheerleaders.
I think that must be mega powerful.
It
It's
really
very,
is.
very powerful.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
we always talk about nobody ever stands alone at Women in a State Agency. People that are coming to our events, etc. A lot of people come on their own because they know they're never going to be on their own. So that support and camaraderie and friendship is a big part of the community. But it's also a big thing is around advice. You know, people come to that Facebook group for advice because there isn't such thing as a stupid question in there. You know, they can post anonymously, they can post as themselves and they'll always get answers, but it's a place to go for questions, advice, support, understanding when sometimes work can feel a little bit isolating. You know, if it's a small business and you don't have that best friend in your business, then we can give...
Or if you're remote, which a lot of people are now, and you can't just across the
agents,
desk
or-
say to someone, remind me how you do this. They're straight on the group.
I've remembered my other point. It
He's
feeds
very
perfectly
good.
into this.
Go on then, go.
Go for it.
So your question initially was how to help people to understand the best way to approach this. If they're a team, how do you encourage people to go for a promotion, as an example? So what was really interesting when Kirsty did a bit of analysis of the group and what they use for. So people dip into the group as and when they need it, which makes complete sense. 5,000 people in the group, they're not all going to log into it every day, but I need a bit of help, I'm going to go in there. So it's a safe space, you can ask any question you want. There's no pushback, there's no such thing as a bad question. The other place you can go for, as maybe a business owner, maybe you're a male business owner and you can't go into that group and you don't have a strong enough appreciation and you want to, we're just about to rebrand Charter. So just so you know, the Charter is, the concept is going to be creating a scheme that helps people. So you join a bit of a partnership program and you join WiEA, and we haven't finalised the details yet, but what is going to be part of it is this huge resource that will help with education and learning and best practice for areas that I can say hand on heart 15 years ago wouldn't have been on most people's radar. But they should be now, and they are now. And if you need help in tackling something as a man in your business,
Or a woman.
Sure.
Or a woman,
but
yeah.
So what we're going to create is a package of resources that will help with scenarios that you should be probably more educated on. But actually, there is, if we're honest, a lack of training in this area. So if you need some help, email me, talk to you about Charter. We can work out what that looks like, and I don't know what, announcing next couple of weeks, months, something like that.
Early New Year.
Yeah.
Early New Year.
Look out for that Charter. I think that's a great point in which to end this episode. And thank you so much for allowing me to come and film in your studio here in Chiswick, Ben. It's bloody lovely. It's really nice. A bit hot, but we'll let you off for that one. And Kirsty, congratulations on a brilliant year.
Thank you.
In 2025. Obviously, we're now in 2026. And well done again, Verona, with your recent results that you shared
Thank you.
in the industry. You should be extremely proud, and I'm so glad you did go for that job as well. Ben, you're obviously a bit of a legend. You don't need any more than that. Keep watching the Estate Agent Showdown. Follow the group in Facebook for Women in a State Agency. Look out for the event coming up on the 5th of March. Get your tickets now because they will be going. They've sold out, and every year you've done it so far.
Every year, with a big waiting list.
Thank you so much, guys. Have a great 2026.